Hello and welcome to Driven by Doing podcast. Today we have got one more great guest from Memphis, Tennessee. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I've seen some amazing things that you have been doing over the past 20 plus years, especially in the communication space. So, really wanted to get down to your story and how your journey began in this area. So, you're originally from Dyersburg here in Tennessee, and you went to school at UT Knoxville. So, let's get and start from over there. So since out of college, you're in the same area. So did you already know what you wanted to do in your life back then?
So, yes, I did. It goes back before that as a child growing up in Dyersburg. I really loved children's theater. I was exposed to it at a young age and just fell in love with it and did lots of plays and really just found kind of my spark. If you've seen the movie Soul, they talk a lot about finding your spark, and I found it there. I also really enjoyed writing. As a child, I had a lot of trouble communicating my feelings. And so writing was one way that I discovered kind of how to do that. So my linear thinking at that point said, well, I can marry writing with kind of the performance piece by becoming a broadcast journalist. And that's such a 16, 17-year-old way to look at the world. But I'm not disappointed that I kind of made that choice. I went to school at the University of Tennessee and loved it. It had a wonderful broadcasting program led by Dr. Sam Swan, who was one of my first and still to this day, one of the major influences in my life. I kind of knew midway through that maybe there was more out there, but I was committed. I was committed to seeing it through. I started with this degree. I'm going to finish with this degree. So while there, I really got fascinated by the world of speech communication. It seemed a little bit like anthropology to me, how we connect with each other, varying communication styles, which certainly played into broadcasting. And I also got back into theater there and was just exposed to a lot of different things. I love to this day being on a college campus because you can just really kind of feel the energy. And I'd love to go back and be a student now. Who knows, maybe I will be. But that's what led me to start my career in broadcasting.
That's amazing that at such an early stage, like a lot of students might be still wondering what to do in their careers. And we have seen a lot of students still, even after coming out of college, they still try to figure out what is the thing that they really are passionate about. And in fact, in your story, it is very evident that getting exposure that at that stage, to theater and finding your passion in writing really helped you to get going in that direction, isn't it?
Yes, and I would really like to add that I don't think either way was the right way, or maybe that was not necessarily the best thing, that I was kind of stubborn in my path. I think I'm grateful for where it's led me, so I certainly wouldn't say I regret it. But to those students or adults, prospective students, young people who are thinking of what they want to be when they grow up, just know that not knowing isn't the end of the world. I'm not in broadcasting today. And, I've heard a few of your podcast guests talk about the fact that few people that I know are doing what they went to college, their first year of college, to do. So there's certainly no right or wrong way, and don't lose steam if you're just uncertain of the path, because that's what learning's all about. It is finding those passions and finding those sparks, and you really get exposed to a lot of that in higher education.
You're absolutely right, Alice, because especially nowadays, there is so much technology out there, and just getting exposure to a lot of things, and especially we have seen how the virtual world has changed things for us over the past year or so now. So just getting exposure to a lot of things, as you just mentioned, learning is constant because we always find different passions as we go on and progress in our careers. And now coming back to your story again, now you came out of your college, like you have experienced the college life and you're out there looking for opportunities, and you
Yeah.
started off as an anchor or a reporter. Tell us about that
Mhm.
first experience getting out of college and getting that first opportunity.
I interned at a couple of stations in Knoxville, and I can't say enough about interning. That was something that I know a lot of universities are very intentional about. Mine was as well, and I'm glad for it. And then I decided, I'm young, I'm free. Where do I want to go? And so I chose Austin, Texas. My aunt at the time, she's passed away. She was a big influence in my life, another big influence, and she loved Austin, Texas. And I actually don't even know if she'd ever been, but she just loved the flavor of it. And so I blindly chose it and ended up interning at a TV station there and fell in love with that city and its culture and the music. And this was back in 2000. It's changed a lot and grown a lot. From there, I moved back home because getting a job on air right out of college is challenging. You typically have to move to a really small town, a small market, and start very small. You're making at that time, I'm actually not quite sure. I don't think it's changed much. In fact, it might have gotten worse. You're not making much money. And so if you don't have a support system, which financially, which I didn't, I was supporting myself, it's tough. So I was fortunate enough to land a job kind of in my backyard in Jackson, Tennessee, as a reporter, a one-man band reporter. So back then you carried about 20 pounds of camera equipment on your back, and you set up the camera and you got in front of, you were your own camera person and reporter. That was the introduction of the chiropractor to me, from carrying around all that equipment, but certainly taught me a lot of lifelong skills that I still have today. I eventually became anchor at the station, the morning anchor, which was going to bed when Oprah was on at that point at 3 o'clock and getting up at 2 a.m., I think, to go into the station. And, and from there, I really loved the producing aspect, the writing aspect. I found out I wasn't as in love with the performance aspect as I had been as a young girl. And so when I was recruited to come to Memphis to a TV station here, the opportunity was for producing, and I took it, and it was a great experience to really fine tune those skills of every single day you're producing a newscast. So it's project management. It's, meeting deadlines daily. One of the great things about it was typically when you went home at the end of the day, that was it until the next day. But I read recently someone said that you should always hire a journalist if their resume passes your desk. And obviously, I always will look for opportunities to up my value if my resume comes across someone's desk. But honestly, all of those skills combined of just working under pressure and having to get it right under pressure were really valuable to me and still are today.
Absolutely. I think just thanks for navigating us through the whole journey of those first opportunities, and also being a news producer. And you found your different passions as you navigated through that journey, isn't it? And most importantly, we see like a lot of students who go to that communication major, like, they translate their skills very well into like, different kinds of marketing roles or sales roles. It's kind of very interesting, like how this major has that flexibility to really get into like different phases of especially in those different kinds of roles. So were you also like interested in those kind of roles, like, back then? Were most of your friends going into those kind of different roles? They were trying to like, just explore even those kind of roles with their backgrounds?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, when people got out of school, they would go into advertising or marketing or something to that effect. And when people got out of the news, those were kind of the roles that they were attracted to or recruited for. What I found ironic, though, was a lot of friends who went that direction, like a public relations route, had a hard time getting a job because they didn't have public relations experience on their resume. And you think, well, maybe not directly, but they were the ones writing the press releases for the PR people, or reading the press releases the PR people were writing. So they were the audience. They knew exactly what people were looking for. But you know, from seeing their experiences, they didn't give up and they found creative ways, like I know a lot of your students do, to market their skills. Your skills aren't black and white, and think outside the box of how they could translate. If you see a job opportunity that really speaks to you, think on it, look at it, and see where your skills, even though if they don't fit quite neatly in a little box, where they apply.
Absolutely, Liz. I think you hit on the right point there, because especially one of the challenges, as I speak with a lot of students, the challenge that they were having is to like really translate their experience into the things that they actually look at when they're applying for a job opportunity. That seems to be a very major problem. Like even just talking with a lot of career service professionals, hey, like students are really nice and they had some good experience, like as a customer representative, or like so many different varieties of experiences, but they lack the translation into those kind of new roles that they're interested to apply for. And as you mentioned, like the communications, the marketing, and they are so interchangeable. Like we see a lot of folks moving around into these different areas irrespective of what their major was. And that's kind of very interesting to me, how interchangeable these majors were, especially because of the skills that they were being taught has that diversity in itself. So now, coming from those two roles, now you're in a corporate career. Now tell us a little bit more about like how you transition, because it's kind of like very unique that like having all that experience in the media and those kind of roles, you transition into corporate career. Is that something that you did intentionally, or hey, like this is a great opportunity, let me try it out and like see if this is
Right.
like really I wanted to do?
I did not set out to enter the corporate world. It happened quite by accident, which again, I think a lot of the people you talk to will say that a lot of their opportunities did happen by accident. But I think the thing that you have to have when you intersect with those accidents is you have to be prepared. I guess you do have to have a skill set, and you have to be able to know how to kind of market yourself for these roles. So the role, the first corporate role that I took, and I'm still at the same company, was an internal communications, which is also called corporate communications or executive communications. I do a lot of employee engagement, so it kind of seeps into a bunch of different worlds. I didn't even know what that was when I was approached with the opportunity, but it was a new role at the company. And so this is, oh gosh, more than 12 years ago. And so a lot of companies, particularly mid-size, were just kind of tuning in to this value of internal communications. How I landed upon the job was good old-fashioned networking. It was through an acquaintance of an acquaintance that said, "Hey, I've got this role," and we met. And she said, "I really think that you'd be a good fit for this." And I was open to the opportunity. I was very comfortable in my role, but knew that media was kind of going into some uncharted waters. And so I thought, you know what? And in my role, you really sometimes have to move around city to city to move up. And I had really at that point fallen in love with Memphis. Did not plan to do that, but it happened. So I didn't really want to leave. And so anyway, this opportunity came across my desk, and I said yes. I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I was drinking out of a fire hose. I was reading every like trade publication. Not only did I not know internal communication specifically, but I did not know the field that I was supporting, which was law. And I mean, I know the law. I had never been arrested, but I didn't know. I'd never worked with lawyers. So it was a lot of self-learning. Fortunately, it was a new role, so I was kind of able to create it in a way, which was exciting. It was not exciting at the time. Now I think it would be really exciting, but it was terrifying then. So I reached out to people on LinkedIn, well, not LinkedIn then, but in professional networks that had the title internal communications, and just said, hey, you want to chat? Like I had a couple of friends that had gone that route. So it was really kind of a trial by fire. And here I am 12 years later. It's been a really rewarding career, one that I feel honored to do in internal communications and employee engagement and culture. I do a lot of work in culture. You're really able to help shape a workplace, which is an ecosystem for people. It's where we spend a lot of our time, you know, and so it's just really gratifying to be able to make an impact in people's lives through their work, by ensuring that they're valued and they're cared for, and they feel that care from their employer. And so yeah, had no idea that this was even a thing. Would have sounded a little woo-woo to me probably 20 years ago, but here I am and really enjoying it.
That is just amazing, Liz. Like now, how just taking that one opportunity or the chance that you got, and then just making a career out of it, not knowing really, like, the field you're getting into, but you seem like enjoying it thoroughly, especially with your role into internal communication, and like just the workplace culture is something that is transforming. And especially during the COVID period, we are hearing and learning so many things. And I'm curious, like, how are you managing this whole transition into this new virtual world, and especially being in that very role of like helping internal and employees? Like, tell us more about your role, and like how this has whole transformed the whole corporate internal communications.
Well, obviously the work is more important than ever before, especially as this all began. There was there's still a lot of uncertainty, but there was a lot of uncertainty at the beginning. And, you know, I believe that in crisis, there's no such thing as over communication. People want to hear from their leaders and their workplace often. It doesn't matter if you're repeating yourself. It's just like, you know, as a parent saying shh, 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 over and over to your inconsolable child. There's something lulling about that repetition and just knowing that you're there and that you're watching their back. I think that's so important for people. So it's really elevated the work that internal communicators do. I've just felt, again, an immense sense of gratitude that I've been able to connect people during a time when they needed that most. A lot of the work I do is with executive communications, and, you know, just really kind of helping our leaders, especially like our CEO and all the C's, helping them communicate with the company at large. Not that they need help communicating. I've found that most executives I've worked with are good communicators. They probably wouldn't be as successful as they are if they weren't. But you need a gatekeeper, somebody kind of keeping their eye on what's going in and what's coming out, and also helping them with content. They're busy. Like, they need somebody to help research, or, you know, kind of fact check, or build templates or give some ideas and things like that. So yeah, during this pandemic, especially at the beginning, I mean, there were a lot of long days, 7-day work weeks, but that was kind of, we were needed. And so I was happy to do it and kind of help amplify the voices that people needed to hear during a time when they just needed guidance.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that. And especially, we are seeing a lot of constant change that is inevitable. And exactly, we have seen how it transformed in so many different ways for the past, like now, 8, 9 months. And we are still going through that phase right now. And we aren't sure like how long this will be. But definitely, the environment is going to be more hybrid. That's what we are anticipating, especially with how things have changed in the past 6 to 9 months. And now, just to learn more about communications, like what would you tell people who are wanting to get into communication, especially in the corporate space? And what kind of skills do you look for in them when you're interviewing candidates? If that would be helpful for like our listeners.
Yes, I think this probably goes without saying, but it's something that I probably didn't pay close enough attention to early in my career, and sometimes slips through my fingers now. But certainly something that I think is important is just those basic skills. Make sure your resume is impeccable if you are applying for a job where words are everything, which communication, that is true. So if you're able to go to career services, ask someone to look it over, ask a friend to look over your resume, help you with your cover letter, because in all roles, that's important. But in communication, there's an added layer. I may be looking less at your accolades and more at how you sell yourself through your writing, because that's what you're going to be doing in the company. Not necessarily selling yourself, but you're communicating and selling ideas and helping people understand things. So I need to really understand who you are through your resume. Obviously, make sure that when I interview you, you match that resume. Yeah, I think that's again, so basic and so maybe elementary, but it is so important. And I've seen it time and time again where I don't think that means that person is not intelligent. What it says to me is they don't really care about getting this job. They're simply just farming out resumes. And I'd rather focus on candidates who are really interested in the work, more than just like, hey, let me just throw out 1,000 resumes a day. And I guess that's the other thing. LinkedIn is such a great tool now. Look at different profiles, enter keywords, look for people who are doing things that are interesting to you and reach out to them. I've done this over the years. In fact, I still keep in touch with a mentor that is a great content producer. She's a just a real go-getter in my field. And she agreed to have a more than 30-minute phone conversation with me. Just let me pick her brain. People are more generous than we might think. And for every 10 no's, that one yes is going to be worth it. And look at their career path, study it, set aside some time to kind of study LinkedIn. It's a really valuable tool, and one that I think people in the job market these days are very fortunate to have.
I think those are some great tips, Liz, especially leveraging LinkedIn. And you mentioned like a couple of times how you leverage your own network even while you're transitioning your careers, and how your acquaintances even helped you in those areas. And what would you tell students while they're coming out of college and especially in networking space, right? Sometimes it's very hard to connect with people. Sometimes they are so afraid that, hey, like I didn't really know this person, but you gave a great tip here to really study their profile and like, see the career transition and what other things that people like, like, especially for example, like if I'm reaching out to you, that like what would you tell me that, hey, like these are some things that is interesting, hey, I wanted to have a conversation with Venki.
So no matter what stage they're in, there's, and if I'm not answering your question directly, let me know, because I do want to make sure I'm giving the information that you're looking for. But one thing that I always tell people who may be intimidated about networking, no matter what phase of career they're in, they're either looking to switch careers, they are new into the world, the career world. I have found that volunteering and community service is such a great way to change the world around you. The lowercase world, as our CEO says, change the world around you. It is such an authentic way to get to know people. A lot of career folks are inundated with sales calls and pitches and people hitting them up for things, and they're busy and they may have fatigue from that, so they may not answer to every LinkedIn message, but again, I still recommend a authentic and genuine pitch. For every 10 no's, you'll get one yes, I think. Maybe 20 no's, who knows? But the volunteering, and again, the third, so changing that small world around you, the networking piece. I have met some of my most valued friends, mentors, and people who I know if I needed or wanted to change careers tomorrow would be great, kind of allies in that search. And third, it's a great way to develop skills that you can put on your resume or that you can talk about in an interview. I have always been interested in real estate. What I do has nothing to do with real estate, corporate real estate in particular. So when the charter school that I am privileged to serve on the board of was looking for new space, I volunteered for the space committee because we were going to go look at properties and talk about contracts and things like that. So, it was a great way just for me to, from a curiosity standpoint, get to learn something new. And I did learn that I'm probably not cut out for corporate real estate. So that was a valuable tip. But if I ever did want to dip my toe in that water, I'd have a little bit of knowledge of the world. And so that's something, I have 2 young kids. That's something I really, more than anything that I do in my life, I really would love to pass on that value of giving back, not just for, the reasons that you do it, which is to make the world a better place and your community a better place, but it really can be a valuable tool in your own toolbox.
Absolutely. And these are some great tips. Again, you talked about being authentic and just serving other people. And that's exactly what I learned for the past 1 year, Liz, just getting to know people through this podcast and learning their background. And I got some great inspiration just seeing how other people are helping each other in ways that they can. And you touched upon the importance of mentoring. And a lot of people, and especially in this virtual world, we always kind of like have this extra time just being at home. Like a lot of people are helping students who are coming out of college. It's great to see that everybody wants to support each other and help in ways that they can. And what would you say the best advice that you got, since you got lots of mentors for sure? I heard like a lot of names during this podcast. What do you think is the best advice that you got that really made an impact in your life from your mentors?
Well, first, I would like to say that I do have a lot of mentors, and that's because I view a lot of people I meet as mentors. I feel like you can learn something from anybody. I view my aunt as one. So, we talked earlier about how some people can be intimidated by seeking out mentors. Anybody in your life can be a mentor, and you can be a mentor to anyone. Probably don't want to run around doling out unsolicited advice, but you can make yourself available for that. The best piece of advice, it's really hard to pick just one. I guess one that comes to mind right now that is really resonating with me is not to sweat the small stuff. Again, very cliche, but if you lend toward kind of perfectionism tendencies, that's especially, I think it's important no matter what, but that's such an important thing to keep in mind. If you mess up, own it, learn from it, but keep moving. Don't let it rent space in your head. Don't let it impact your future work product, or let it impact your own self-worth. Everybody in this world messes up daily, no matter if they're at the top of their game or the bottom. Everybody makes mistakes, so give yourself some grace, especially during this pandemic, but at all times, just roll with it as best you can, because that builds resiliency, and that's probably the thing that you need the most in this crazy world out there, both the career world and the world in general.
I think those are some great tips. Again, thanks for sharing those wonderful ideas, Liz. You talked about building resiliency just by keep moving, because a lot of times we felt crushed if we do mess up some things, and a lot of times, especially like now, students when they're eyeing, they kind of like feel lost if they kind of like really didn't get the things that they wanted to do, or didn't kind of get the job right out of college. And especially during this period, like a lot of students are really struggling to kind of like get their first opportunity. But we are seeing a lot of inspiration, especially from a lot of professionals who are helping them, and a lot of students are also sharing their stories on LinkedIn, how they are getting their first opportunity irrespective of how the atmosphere is. So just seeing their stories and just building their resiliency and just keep moving. I think that's the best thing that I got out of this podcast is like, irrespective of what we are doing, there is always things that might go wrong, or that we might not even anticipate. So is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience?
No, I'm grateful for this platform and for what you're doing for our future career warriors out there. I know that it's probably a bleak time. It feels like a bleak time to be entering this world of career. But one mentor and friend told me recently that after every single pandemic, there has been a renaissance. And so I have no doubt that the people entering the workforce today are going to enter a workforce that is so dynamic and changing, and they're going to be part of something really amazing. And they're not going to have to unlearn some of the skills of the pre-Renaissance world like some of us will. They're gonna be at the forefront of it. So yeah, keep going. Be prepared, because again, opportunity might come, but if you got to be prepared and kind of have the skills too. And just again, roll with it. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Wow, that's Liz McKee from Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you so much, Liz, once again, and definitely reach out to Liz. I'm going to share her details about in the description below, and definitely please subscribe to our podcast on all the different platforms, and also watch our show on YouTube. Thank you so much, Liz, again for your wonderful time today.
Thank you, Venki. It's been a pleasure.